Hi friends, Mindy here. I have a different sort of video for you today. I am going to be sharing with you some mixed media techniques that you can do courtesy of this little paint scraper tool that came in the most recent kit from Bythewell4god as a freebie. If you met certain criteria, this was one of the freebies. I do know that from a little birdie that these will be showing up in the shop for purchase. So keep your eyes open for those. These are a lot of fun. If you are new to mixed media, this might be something that seems a little bit foreign. If you have been doing mixed media forever, then you probably already know everything that I'm going to show you here. But I just want to give you some ideas for using this little card that they sent because it's so fun. It's made from some synthetic paper, so it's kind of almost like Yupo, but so it's like a plasticky paper, so you can use it. It's not as heavyweight as like, you know, a credit card would be, but it's actually a little bit better that way because you have some flexibility for some of the techniques and things that you want to do to get different looks. So I also have pulled out my Dina Wakley paints. They sold these as a kit. Those kits have also sold out. Everything sold out really fast this month, but they do have some of individual colors that are a la carte that you can still get. I will put my link down below if you're interested in that. I'm also going to be using some gel medium. This also came in that kit. I also have some light and fluffy modeling paste from the Crafter's Workshop. And then I'm also going to be showing some golden molding paste. So you could certainly use Tim Holtz texture paste and all kinds of those. These are just a couple that I have pulled out. I don't have time to go through all of the techniques that you can do with all of the different kinds of mediums, but I just want to give you some idea, and then, you know, use your stash. Go into your stash, see what you have that you can use. If you don't have the Dina Wakley paints, you can do this with regular craft paint. You can do it with, if you have distress paints, you can do it with that. Those are a little bit thinner, so you may need to kind of add a little bit of something to create the body if you're running those really, you know, really dimensional techniques. But let's just talk about this little scraper first. So it has this little zigzag edge, which you can use to get some really fun techniques, but also you have the flat edge. And so this flat edge, if you want to just really simply add some color quickly to your page, especially a Bible page, you can just add a little bit of paint. You don't need a lot, and you can just use, you know, the paint scraping technique if that's new to you. You're going to get a nice thin layer. It's going to dry quickly. It's not going to bleed through your Bible paper. And it's just a great way to add some paint and some texture to your background, add some color. And I personally really like using acrylic paint in my Bibles because it does not bleed through the way that some other inks and things can. And then once you've done that, you can do other inks and things on top of it and not have it bleed through. So let me know if there's something that I'm talking about today, if I don't cover it, that you'd like to see in a video. I was asked to do this video to kind of explain what this tool is and how to use it. And so I'm not going to be able to cover all of the things that you can actually do with it. I just want to kind of give an introduction to it and hopefully maybe give some ideas and maybe take some of the fear out of those. I know there's a lot of people who are just kind of starting to dabble into mixed media, and it's so much fun. So, you know, just take out your stuff and play and have fun and experiment. It's really the best way to learn, and it's just it brings joy. It does for me anyway. So one little public service announcement that I want to say really quickly is, and I've already done this, but I use gloves in a bottle. This is a barrier cream lotion. You just put it on like lotion, and it will, especially if you have really dry hands like I do, it really helps so that when you're playing with all the paints and everything, that when you go to wash your hands, it hasn't all like seeped into your skin. It will just wash off easier. That's just a little thing I'm adding in there because I use it, but I do it a lot off camera, and so I never think to mention it, but it is something that's really helpful, especially if you like finger painting and all those kinds of things that to me are part of mixed media that make that fun. But for now, we're just going to go through some very, very basic techniques with this little card. I am going to be starting off with some Bristol vellum paper. This is paper that I use a lot for my mixed media techniques, especially in my journals. But you certainly don't have to use this paper. You can even use your traveler's notebook. In fact, I have that pulled out because that's a heavy paper. It's not a mixed media paper, but you can really do a lot with it as well. But I just want to show first a couple of very basic techniques. So I'm just going to grab this paint here. This one is blushing, and again, you know, the heavier the body of paint, the easier some of this stuff is. If you have a really thin layer of paint, you can certainly, you know, a thinner paint, you can certainly do this with it as well. But you can even apply this just right to your card here. And, you know, just, you don't need a ton at all. You just need a little bit. In fact, I probably added just a little bit too much. Obviously, the more that you do, the more coverage you're going to get. But this is just a very, very simple, very basic, like, paint swiping technique that you can do. So you just kind of lay it down and then pull, and the more pressure you do, you know, will kind of spread out that paint, but that will just give you a nice layer. This is a great way to add paint quickly into your Bible page, like I said, and it will dry super, super fast this way. You can already see it's pretty well dry. This is also mixed media paper, so it may take a little bit longer than that in your Bible, but it will dry very, very quickly this way. And it's just a great way. It also, you can kind of see some of that white through there. It's going to leave that a little bit transparent, which is great too, especially if you accidentally, you know, get it on the words of your Bible. You can still want to be able to read it. I know that is a concern for some people, so... and then I'm going to do this same technique. I'm actually going to apply this with a paintbrush here, I think. Let me get my favorite paintbrush out of the water, because I think this will show. And I'm going to actually apply this to my brush, but you could certainly just apply it to a palette if you want. But I'm just going to apply some paint here, and then just show that you can use the little pointy part to just drag through, and you're going to get some visual texture. Now, this is not going to be, you know, an actual, like, a lot of textile, like tactile texture, but it's just going to give you a design. I did like a little wavy pattern in there. Certainly you could do straight lines with it. It's got a very sharp point on there. And so, you know, different tools that are like this, there are other tools kind of out there, and that may be showing up later, that have different designs on them, are going to give you different techniques, you know, different looks. So I'm just going to apply some more paint with what is obviously still a very dirty paintbrush. That's okay. Just to kind of give you without the wave, so you can kind of see. So you can, you know, create your line. And again, this is just into the wet paint. This is not anything. You can create your own little plaid in there if you want. You could continue to add designs really until your paint dries. I will say, you know, you want to make sure that you're not letting your paint dry on here, especially acrylic paint is going to build up. Anything with texture paste or modeling paste or anything like that is going to build up the same way that it would in a stencil. So have a baby wipe that you can, you know, wipe it off, and then, you know, because you don't want to ruin the effect of it. But those are just very super basic ways that you can use if you're, you know, just terrified of kind of delving into this whole mixed media idea with acrylic paints and all these crazy things. Start here. This is a very, very simple technique that you can do, and you're still going to get a lot of interest. And then you can add more things over the top. You can add more colors over the top. Obviously, when acrylic paint dries, you can layer it and it's not going to be transparent. So you can get all of these, you know, fun techniques that you get in here. So next, I want to show kind of mixing this with a little bit of the gel medium, because this is one of the items that came in with this kit of paint that was sold. And I know that, again, it's one of those things, they sold out so fast that not everybody was able to get a hold of that, that kit. But if maybe you have some paint in your stash, you can do this same thing with it. And you certainly don't have to have gel medium or any of these things to be able to create texture or the look of texture in your projects. So I am just going to I'm going to add a little bit of gel medium here. That's what I said I was going to do. Just to kind of give this paint a little bit more body, a little bit more texture, more thickness, more presence on my page. So this is not going to be super textured because, again, gel medium is also kind of liquidy, but it is going to give me more. And I'm going to start with this same kind of idea. I'm going to start with the flat side. I'm picking up the paint. I just have kind of a roll of it along here, and I'm just going to, I'm not going to smoosh it down as hard as I did over here because I want to have some of that texture I want it to stay on my page. So I'm just going to kind of lightly do it. And I will say that the thicker that you make your paint, or your texture, like using your texture mediums and that kind of stuff, the thicker that is, the longer it's going to take to dry. So just kind of keep that in mind. But that also gives you more working time to create designs if you want to. So again, I'm just going to come through here and scrape. You can see where it was a little bit thinner, where it's a little bit thicker. All of that to me is interest on your finished piece. So this is going to take a little bit longer to dry. It's not a super raised, if you're concerned about, you know, having too much texture on your page. It's not super raised. It is a little bit textured. I don't really know if you can see how that will do. I do have one that I was playing with earlier. Let me see. I don't think that it's dry, but this one was done with some gel medium. I did it in the same kind of way, a little bit thicker with the application of it, but you can kind of see it's still drying. So again, it does take, the thicker it is, the longer it's going to take to dry. And part of the fun is working with layers in mixed media. And so sometimes you set something off to dry, and then take and use these leftover things that you have and start working on something else, and then you can experiment while that dries. Now I want to add just some, I'm going to go in with molding paste, just because this is kind of, it's not as thick as like a texture paste would be, but it is going to give some body. I'm going to use just the back of another palette knife. I'm not going to do a ton of paint this time, but you can see gel medium was a little bit thinner. You can see that this molding paste is a little bit thicker, and this would be similar to Tim Holtz texture paste if you have some of that. Some of his texture pastes are this way, and it's going to do the same thing. I'm trying to just kind of show all of the fun colors. I think we'll do this one. I'm just going to add some paint right into that, and I'm going to mix it again with my palette knife. Now this is going to be, it's going to lighten this up a little bit, obviously, because the molding paste is white. So but you can already see just over here how much thicker this paint is now. And so when I apply this, I'm actually going to apply this with the back of my palette knife here to get a really good thick layer, so that I can show you some of the techniques that you can do, again, just with this little card. So you could certainly smooth this out and really drag this out and get some really fun techniques this way. And this is with the molding paste in it. It's just going to give it a little bit more body. And then you can, again, just go and swipe straight through that, and you're going to get those really fun ridges. Again, you're going to have all of this that builds up on there. And so just keep that in mind. You don't want too much of it to do that. But then if I wanted to say go at an angle this way and get a fun design, then I can also go through here and add little pieces of texture. And any kind of card like this that has these different cuts in them, they're all going to look different. So just keep that in mind. And then again, I'm just going to clean that off because I don't want all of that building up on there. And then I don't want to waste any of this either. So I'm actually just going to smoosh this out, and then I will use most likely I will use these pieces later to cut some die cut, just to cut things out or to layer in my things. I know it looks like a hot mess now, but I'm not trying to give you a finished piece, but more an idea for how you can use this. And so now I'm going to move into the light and fluffy modeling paste. I'm going to come back to this pink color though, I think, because I wanted to kind of keep this all on this one page. But again, just keeping your, I'm just wiping off my palette knives, and I will go in later and give them a proper clean. I'm just doing this with a paper towel baby wipe. Light and fluffy modeling paste from Crafters Workshop is one of my favorite mediums. I really love it, especially because in using it in a Bible, because it's just a lighter, it still has a lot of texture, but it's lighter, if that makes sense. So again, this is a white paste though, so when I add my paint to it, it's going to lighten it a little bit, and I'm actually going to mix a couple colors in here, which, just so we can see, that is like a neon. That is a bright color right there. So I'm okay if that gets muted down a little bit with this white. But I'm just going to mix this with my palette knife, and I'm actually not even going to mix it all the way because that's sort of the fun of mixed media that you can't really get any other way, or, you know, is with having all, I don't know if you can see on here, all of the different, you have like almost the white, you have the really light pink, you have that almost neon color pink, all sort of living happily on my palette. And I'm actually thinking maybe I should do this on a different, let me slide this out of here for a second. And I have one that, again, I was playing with earlier. So let me just, I'm gonna smush this out from the back. Again, I have everything loaded on the back of my palette knife, and I'm just gonna lay this out. You can see already how much thicker this is, but also how much dimension that this already has, because those paint colors are not mixed. If you wanted it to all be the same color, absolutely just keep mixing with your palette knife. But then again, if I go through here, you're going to see how deep you can really go. I'm all the way down to the paper, and then I'm just going to smush that off. But I want to show you too, if you don't want as much texture there, I'm going to flip this around just so it's closer to me. And also so I can use up the rest of this texture paste. I don't really want it to go to waste. I'm going to smooth this out in the same way. You know, it's thicker right in here where I first started, and I'm getting thinner as it kind of fades out. But again, you don't have to press hard and all the way down through. You can see that's what I did here. So I was able to get all the way down to the white paper, but maybe you don't want that look. So you can just kind of graze your way through there, and you're going to get a whole different look from that. I hope that these are showing up okay. It's really kind of cloudy and overcast here today, so it's hard, but you can kind of see those really fun ridges in this texture paste. At least I hope you can. So I will try to put some close-ups when at the end of this video, so you can really kind of see the different textures that I was able to achieve. You can kind of see this one is already dried, and it's just got really fun layers in there. So let me set that off to the side. I want to show you a couple other things that you can do with your little paint scraper tool. I do want to clean off this texture paste that's already accumulating on here. And this is another good reason, save your packaging from your kits, because it will allow you to I'm just using all the extra of that. It will allow you to be able to mix things. Also, you know, don't be afraid of using paper plate either. Certainly have done that. So let me just get rid of this, and I'm going to bring in my jelly plate. Now I know that not everybody has a jelly plate, and or maybe you have, or you've considered getting them. They're a lot of fun. So I have just my small one here just to kind of show you for today. I have a brayer. Tim Holtz has a brayer as well. This is just my old one that I've had forever. Because really less is more when you're talking about paint with a jelly plate. You really want a very, very thin layer, which is great. And you know, if you're brave enough, you can even plop this down in your Bible. Personally, I would work outside of it and then add it into my Bible, just because I like to have a little bit more control over that, and, you know, not getting it where I don't want it. But I am going to start with this peacock color because it just happens to be one of my favorite colors. So again, less is more. You can see I have very little paint. So you may look at these paint bottles and think that is not a lot of paint, but these go a long way. You kind of will be surprised. And the way, you know, you can see I just had that little blob up there at the top. I'm just going to brayer this on. You can see I'm going in different directions. Just want to make sure I have a nice thin coat. There's kind of a balance. This is one of those things that you really just take some time, take your paint, take your jelly plate, sit down and play for a while, because there's a little bit of, you know, a learning curve with how much how much paint. And I will say that like Dina Wakley paints, they're going to dry on here much quicker than a craft paint, and much quicker than like a distress paint as well. Just because they're a heavier body, and so they dry quicker. This is deli paper that I'm using. I like to use this with my jelly plate because it gives you like a really, really thin paper when you're finished, and it works great in collage. And so you can see that nothing came up because my paint actually dried on here. If this happens to you, though, I guess I will use this as an opportunity. If this happens to you, do not worry. I'm just going to make sure that this is really nice and dry here for a second, because you can pull this paint up. It's really no problem. So I'm going to grab, which I don't have out here, just some gesso or some white acrylic paint. And I'm going to just add a couple drops. Now, you know that there's teal on there because I added it on there, but like I said, it dried. So I'm just going to add this white gesso on the back. Fun fact, this is also a way, if you want kind of a more opaque look to whatever color that you have applied, this will help you get that, because gesso is going to do that for you. You kind of have that white backing on there. So now I'm going to apply my deli paper again, and this will actually help pull up all of the paint that is on there. So you can see now that I was actually able to pull up the paint that was on there. This is, again, if you're new to jelly plates, if you're not new to jelly plates, then all of this is going to seem very remedial. But if you have seen people using them or talking about them and wondered about them, this is just a fun way. I really like using these because this is super thin. It will collage well. You can stamp on this. You can apply it into your Bible with some collage medium, and it almost disappears into the background. So deli paper is really fun to use on your jelly plate. But if you don't have that, you can use regular old copy paper. I personally think that the thinner version of paper works better on a jelly plate. Especially if you're using stencils, but particularly because you're using such a thin layer of paint. But I'm also going to let everything that's on here just stay on there, because it just helps to add to those really fun layers. And now I'm going to try to not talk so much while I actually put down some paint. So I'm going to go back in with Peacock here, and another layer. I may add a little bit more paint this time, just so you can kind of see. And also I want to give myself a little bit of time to be able to work with this paint. So again, if you are working on a jelly plate, you kind of have to work a little bit faster unless you're using a paint that has a longer open time, because it will dry on you pretty quickly, which is not a problem, because like I said, you can apply some gesso and still pull the print. But I'm just going to go through here with my card now and add a little wavy texture on here. And you can do this with a stencil as well. You would apply your stencil and take your prints. Like the jelly plate is a whole other video. And so this is copy paper. This is 32-pound copy paper that I have. That's just a nice smooth copy paper. But any kind of printer paper you can really do well. And I'm just making sure to kind of rub this down. You can even use your brayer on the backside. Don't be afraid to kind of just to get all of that contact on that. And again, it dries so super fast that you really don't have to worry about it. And I'm not bothered with having it on the backside of there. And then I'm just going to pull this print. And so you can kind of see the texture that was created from my little wavy texture from the pointy edge of my fun card. So just for fun, I'm going to leave that paint on there, and I'm going to add some pink. Now this one is Carnation. This is the lightest of the paints that were in that bundle that was sold. But again, use what you have. Use whatever colors you have. If you were able to get some of the a la carte ones. Use those, use your distress paints, use, you know, use what you have. I just encourage you to really have a lot of fun and just play with your supplies. You never know which technique is going to be your favorite, or you may discover something, obviously, that I didn't show here. I'm going to go through, I think this time, and just do a straight line. Straight-ish line. And this is just going to help add some, you know, visual texture. And I'm actually going to print this right over where I already was. That's the fun thing about mixed media. It's the fun thing about jelly plates in particular, is getting all of those sort of layers as well. And I don't want this video to get too long. There's so much you can do with a jelly plate, like I said. And I don't know, I use such a light pink that I don't know if you can really see, but you can have the lines kind of going the opposite layer, and you can build as many layers, as many colors, as many things as you want to. You can do this with stencils. You can, like I said, the jelly plate is a whole other probably video, but you create some really fun designs and textures just with using your little paint card, your little free paint card that, by the way, included in your kit. So one last thing I want to show you, and I'm going to use a darker pink for this. I'm going to leave all of that teal on there though, because having this other color will actually pick up some of the bits and pieces of that, and that actually adds a lot of interest. Part of what makes mixed media so fun and so interesting is all of the layers and things that you get when you're working, and some of that comes from doing things like this, where you leave some of those under layers of color. And but what I wanted to show you, I think I'll just do maybe like one kind of swipe down the middle, is that if you have the Traveler's Notebook from Bythewell4god, you can use this. It's, like I said, it's not mixed media paper, but it is a heavy paper that does fun things, and it really does take paint well. And I would actually use my bigger jelly plate if I was going to be printing in directly into the Traveler's Notebook. But don't be afraid to try some of these techniques. I've even used watercolors and stuff in my Traveler's Notebook, and you can kind of see just how fun this can be, because now you're seeing that the pink in there. Now you see those teal lines that were created from the prints before. You know, obviously in the gutter, it's going to be hard to print, you know, clearly, but that's all of the fun of the mixed media things, in my opinion. So I hope that this gives you some ideas. Like I said, there are hundreds of ideas. I will probably be using this little guy, this little card. He's going to be a workhorse for me this month, I can already tell you, because I'm so excited about it. I think that's super, super fun. And it's cute because they printed it to match the kit. Pop it on my ring that holds all my stencils, and it'll just be easily accessible. So anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. I hope that this gave you some ideas. I hope that it was helpful. If you have not subscribed to my channel, I would really appreciate it if you did that. Give this video a thumbs up. Like I said, leave any questions that you have down in the comments. I'll try to answer the best that I can. Let me know if you'd like to see some more mixed media techniques in the future. And until next time, bye.